Hi, everybody. Welcome to this month's edition of Field Notes. I am your host, Jeff Weisenberger, and our guest this month is Steve Knitter, who is president of Geiger and Peters, an AISC member fabricator in Indianapolis, and also board vice chair of AISC. Steve, welcome.
Thank you.
So I want to start from the very beginning.
It sounds like you were born in Indiana.
And then you left, and then you found your way back to Indianapolis. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was a strange circumstance that I was actually born a Hoosier in Fort Wayne, and my family lived in the state for a few years for my brother and I to be born, and then we migrated east, and then I spent most of my years growing up in Vermont. Ended up back at Purdue University later on, where I met my Indianapolis wife, and after taking a job farther away, ended up coming back and to the Hoosier State, and so now I've been here 3 different times, but this last time has been the longest.
Gotcha. So tell me a little bit about Vermont. Do you miss anything about it? I'm guessing you miss the mountains.
Absolutely do. Yeah, Vermont's a special place in my heart for sure. It's just a gorgeous place and a neat place to grow up. Yeah, we still go back and visit. I have lots of aunts and uncles and cousins that are scattered around that region, so we still try to go back as much as we can to visit because really do enjoy it. It's just absolutely beautiful and wide open because not many people. So it's really enjoyable for outdoor sports and so really. Growing up there really had instilled in me a love for the outdoors and skiing and hiking and generally being outdoors.
Let's talk a little bit about how the structural steel business. How did you get into it? Did you grow up saying I want to be a steel fabricator?
Well, no, it was kind of a long process. I knew I wanted to be an engineer. And so I graduated Purdue with a robotics degree, and I ended up working for Motorola, setting up automated lines to build cell phones and walkie-talkies down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and that was a lot of fun. And then I ended up marrying my college sweetheart, who had a tie back to the structural steel business, and so then I started hearing about that, so that was the pull to get me to go from the micro of robotics at Motorola to the macro of structural steel at Geiger and Peters was my wife's family. Her great grandfather started the company in 1905, and so it was a pull to try to get the 4th generation involved in the steel business. And so when she married an engineer, that's how I got called in.
Sure. That is quite a transition going from like you said, the small stuff to the big stuff. I have to ask, I didn't know about the robotics degree. Do you ever dabble? Have you built any robots?
No. So we have one here in the shop, and so I now know enough to be dangerous to talk to the vendors who are setting it up or my operators that are running it. But no, it's been some time since I've been coding up a robot to do what I wanted to do.
Gotcha. So tell me a little bit about your journey to becoming president there. How long? Let's back up. How long have you been with Geiger and Peters again?
So I've been here 24 years, and so okay. I had the luxury of having a predecessor that had a good vision. So when I first came, first I worked at a sister small fabricator company for 3 years that did smaller at a much smaller shop. Kind of learn the business there before I switched over to the main fabrication plant, and I started. For the first 9 months, I shadowed every worker in the shop, and so that gave me a good experience about what everybody did and what everybody needed to do in order to get our product out the door. And then I worked my way through the office, through sales and estimating and project management. And then I was an operational manager before I took over president 10 years ago in 2010.
In terms of projects there at Geiger and Peters, I mean, you've got a lot to in your memory banks, I'm sure. But is there like one that sticks out that you're particularly proud of, or one that you're proud of, but are also like, oh man, I don't know if we could ever do one like that again. That was a challenge.
Well, it's kind of fitting because here we are on the eve of Memorial Day weekend. We're recording this. Is that the one that sticks out for me was when a few years ago we worked on the on expansion of the stands for the 100th running of the Indy 500. When we bid the project, the owner was coming up with all different ideas about and options, and so like a lot of projects, it takes a while to get it released and get going, and so we were constantly talking about different options. But as that time was escaping and the date for the race was coming up, and we knew it wasn't going to be moved. So once we finally got going on it, we had a very compressed schedule, and but it was unbelievable how my workers in the company here, in our field ironworkers, how everybody had such pride in working on the Indy 500, especially the 100th running that
Sure.
Came out of crunch time. We were running the shop 7 days a week and in 24 hours a day. And then we were running the field 7 days a week, and so so it was an unbelievable push that people were willing to do this for this event. I think if it had been a standard office building or something, I don't know if people would have put that much heart into it. And then,
sure.
But what was most
Right.
what was most rewarding is that the president of the Speedway came out and he toured the shop, and of course he toured the site quite often. And but he ended up giving free tickets to all my staff and all my shop workers and all my vendors. He gave us 500 tickets to come to the
500. How about that?
500 tickets, right, for the qualifying days, and it was just a blast because a lot of my guys had never even been to the Speedway, having grown up
Wow.
here. Yeah. And so it's always a great reward when an owner appreciates all the hard work that happens, and it was, it just ended up being a great job.
Sure, that sounds like a special one. Like you said, I mean, you always figure, oh, sure, everybody in Indianapolis has seen the Speedway or been there, but obviously that's not the case. So that's really neat that they were able to do that. And it pardon this terrible pun, but it does sound like it was a race to the finish with the job.
It was, yes.
So you didn't start off in buildings, but obviously you've developed an appreciation for one. So besides, projects that you've worked on there at Geiger and Peters, have you come across any other buildings out there, steel buildings that are kind of like inspirational? You're like, wow, now that I've gotten into the buildings world, this one is one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, for years, my wife and my kids have I drive them a little crazy because when I walk into a big building, I'm always looking up at the structure instead of in front of us. And so, of course, stadiums and public spaces are always great because they usually have nice big spans. I got to say, even though I guess I'm sticking close to home because I go there often, but our Indianapolis Colts stadium, it's called Lucas Oil Stadium.
Oh yeah,
it's got some great superstructure steel that's all exposed, and it runs the long way down the football field, and it's just a neat steel job, and I love that they kept it all exposed, and they got the big columns coming down right in the seats. And they got escalators going through them, and so that's always fun to see when steel is all a showcase like that.
Definitely. I've only been to that building once. I mean, I've seen it a lot on TV, but yeah, that's one of the most unique indoor football stadiums I've ever seen. My one memory there was the Big Ten championship a few years ago. That was a great memory. The bad part of that memory is that my team didn't win, but whatever. So, throughout your, career there, would you say you've got like a big aha moment? Like, is there one spot time or like ever a sea change or a point where you're like, oh, some light bulb went off in your head, or does that happen all the time?
Well, yeah, and that's what's fun. That's what I love about construction is that the company where we're celebrating 115th year in business this year, but yet we're always amazed that we're learning something new almost every day, and there's new challenges all the time, which really makes it fun, but also hard. I guess my biggest aha moment was it just happened to me the timing that I was taking over the company in 2010, which was, if you remember, was still smack in the middle of that in our last recession. And so I really got to take over when it was a bad time. It was hard to get business, and it was hard to keep your head above water. And so I guess my aha moment is that I really had to strip apart the company and think about what was important to us, what was important to keep us going, and then I was so pleased to find out that my employees and my partner vendors that I've worked with for the previous 14 years, those relationships really paid off because then you found out who your friends were, where you're asking for favors that it's hard to back up in a time like that, and then people were still coming through. And then it was so fun to a year later when we were pulling out and the business was coming back, is that able to repay the favor back to those people that stayed true to their relationship with Geiger and Peters. And it was like I say, it was a hard way to take over, but a great learning experience to learn then, and hopefully I don't have to dig in that deep again, but
sure.
If I do, I'm always going to be ready, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. No, and it speaks to resilience as well. That's good to hear. Well, I mean, on that note, obviously we're dealing with another sort of issue now. I was curious, how is the pandemic affected your business, or has it altered how you're working there?
So we've been very fortunate because our staff for the most part is stayed pretty healthy, probably down 10 to 15% of shop and staff combined. But for the most part, we are business as usual, which is actually kind of nice that we're not quite going through the same mental struggles that a lot of people are, being stuck at home, because we still get to come to work every day. It's changed business for sure, because my project managers are now finding they get more time because they're able to do their job meetings via Zoom instead of driving 3 hours to a job site and then driving 3 hours back. And so that's freeing up time. It's going to be interesting to see how this changes our gatherings for projects moving forward.
Sure.
It's definitely got a lot of questions out there for what it's going to do for our industry.
So getting back away from work and back to your history as a Boilermaker, assuming sports happen this fall, I've got my fingers crossed because football is my favorite. You have any predictions for the Boilermaker football team and the Big Ten in general?
Well, I really hope that they're playing football, because the Boilers have finally seen a little bit of surge the last couple of years, and so that's been great. It seems like we've been focusing on basketball more in recent years, so it'd be fun to get football back. I'm also really hopeful that they play in the fall, because I'm so excited that my second son is going to start Purdue in the fall, and so I remember how fun it is to be a freshman and to go to the games and have that great social experience of a Big Ten football game, which, as you know, Jeff, is an experience that's hard to match anything else with.
I agree, and that's great that he's going there now. I have to ask: did you coax him into engineering, or is he doing something else?
Oh, I've been trying, but yeah, he's gone. He's so far applied to the business school and gotten in, and so I'm still pushing to try to get some technical part to it, because I think he'd be great at it.
Sure. No, that's great to hear. So, and you mentioned skiing earlier. I have to ask, I'm guessing you picked that up in Vermont. Did you grow up skiing? I mean, would you consider yourself pretty avid?
Oh, I'm absolutely obsessed by it. Yeah. When we moved to Vermont, we got set up. There was great programs where local kids could ski the mountains on the weekends for a very good price, and to encourage everybody to enjoy the sport. So I grew up going every single weekend in the winter, and winters were usually pretty long in Vermont. And so moving to Fort Lauderdale was a little tough, but then moving to the Midwest, once I moved out here, I figured out how nice the Rockies were, so I started skiing out west also. And yes, I'm just absolutely obsessed with it. I'm always trying to find an excuse to go to get away for a 2 or 3 day trip to ski some good snow, and always trying to find some good snow.
So, do you have any particularly favorite resorts?
Oh, I've had some wonderful trips to Breckenridge. Is a great one because it's easy to fly to Denver and drive up pretty quick. I've also had some great trips to Lake Tahoe. Lake Tahoe's had some great snow years where a few years ago we were out there and they had over 20 feet of snow on the ground. They'd already received 50 feet of snow or something that year, and it was just,
wow.
It was insane. But it was so fun to ski by the little tips of trees that are much taller when you're going by them.
Wow, yeah, no, that is amazing. Yeah, I lived in Colorado for a while. I didn't grow up skiing. I learned then. I tried snowboarding and I never turned back. So as somebody who's skied his whole life, I have to ask, have you tried snowboarding, or do you flat out refuse?
No, I've tried it. In fact, when I was a kid, Burton Snowboards was started by a Vermonter, and so I remember being one of my buddies bringing one to the hill one time. We all strapped in and we played around on it for the day. And I've got lots of friends that have made the transition and love snowboarding. I've tried it, but I still love skiing more. And so and I guess my days of skiing are precious, so I don't want to give them up to beat myself on a snowboard because I'm not as good.
No, I understand. Yeah, my wife is from Colorado and grew up skiing. She tried it once, and a lot of people I've talked to have kind of had a similar experience to you, where if they're really good at skiing, they think snowboarding's fun, but they're like, well, I'm already really, really good at this. And like you said, you don't get it that many days, so yeah, you kind of go with what you enjoy and that you can do. And yeah, those first few times on a snowboard are you do fall a lot, and you do you hurt in places where you don't hurt when you're skiing. But and so you talked a little bit about running and hiking. In terms of running, are you a distance runner? Do you do marathons?
Yeah, so I've done I don't know, probably somewhere between 15 and 20 half marathons, and so I really I enjoy running. That's my morning ritual is to wake up and go for a run before I come to work, and so now
it's a good ritual.
Yeah, and so it started as a good way to stay in shape for skiing, and then I am growing a love for running, and it's just there's something freeing about all you need is a pair of shorts and a pair of shoes, and no matter what town you're in, you can just pop them on and go. And so
sure, no, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, well, no, that's the thing. I've done a lot of I've done biking and hiking and swimming, running. I can't get myself to love, but the thing that I do appreciate the most is what you just said. It's freeing. Anybody could do it. You just need to, you need your shoes, your shorts, and you can go. You don't need any special equipment. That's it. You can do it anywhere.
You just need to get out the door.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Steve. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.